Check Out California radio show, your key to California hospitality. Hosted by Rad Gantos, principal of Rad Gantos and Associates, a hospitality and commercial real estate design firm, and Craig Sullivan, founder and president of the California Lodging Investment Conference. Check Out California is focused on our state's hospitality, travel, and tourism markets, and on the large part they play in California's vibrant and economic diversity and unique quality of life. Now, here are your hosts, Rad Gantos and Craig Sullivan.
Good afternoon. This is Craig Sullivan. This is Check Out California. Rad Gantos isn't here today, so I am solo, but we've got a very special guest today. We've got Dino Champagne from Asset Preservation Incorporated. Dino, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me, Craig.
It's good to see you. Hey, why don't you give our audience a little bit of your background? Tell us what you've been doing, and then we'll jump in with a few questions.
Sounds like a plan. I'm assuming you're saying what I've been doing with asset preservation, right?
Well, throughout your career.
Okay. Not my golf game, because it's been non-existent since October. I'm a fair weather golfer.
There you go.
Okay, so my background is I've been with asset preservation 17 years now.
Wow.
And prior to joining asset preservation as one of their vice presidents and division managers, I was serving as a commercial broker. I did that for about 14 years.
Okay.
So I did leasing, some sales, but predominantly leasing. And before that, I was in banking. So I started when I was.
Background.
Yeah, I started when I was 2. You buying that one?
I was going to say a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
So it's So leasing and banking. And I'm guessing on the leasing, it was more office space than anything else? Or?
No, actually, I did a little bit of industrial, a little bit of office, but I gravitated more toward retail. That was I preferred retail to the other two uses. So
very nice. And then banking, was that prior to becoming a real estate agent, or was that after?
That was before, yeah. I started off in banking, and I was in the branch banking and all the way up to, doing commercial working capital loans and such, and ultimately left banking to get into real estate. So went from one to the other, and then moved on to doing 1031s.
Okay, and you've been doing 1031s now for 17 years.
Yeah.
All at API.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you tell our audience a little bit about what a 1031 exchange is?
Okay. A 1031 is actually a part of the tax code and has been for quite some time, since 1921 actually. What it gives the investor and the business owner that's operating their business out of the property, it gives them an opportunity to defer tax and then go off and buy additional property, so therefore they can end up buying more. So there's certain rules that you have to comply with in doing a 1031. One of the rules is you have to have a firm like ours, Asset Preservation, to facilitate the exchange. So I like to say it's the taxpayer reinvestment plan.
I like that. I like that a lot. Now, as a qualified intermediary, how do you get qualified?
Well, believe it or not, we're not a regulated industry, not from the federal level.
Okay.
Right. At the state level, there are varying state requirements to be a qualified intermediary, but they're nominal. Okay. So it's the Wild West, I guess, to a certain degree.
Great.
But you want to make sure that when you're working with a company, they have security as well as experience in facilitating the exchange.
Yeah. Now, I remember, gosh, you and I go back probably 12, maybe 15 years at this point. Now, my past life as a title rep, we had a 1031 exchange arm, and I remember bringing it to the hospitality sector, but not the corporate sector. Okay, it wasn't the institutional grade. It was more the mom and pop, individual assets, maybe a couple. And we did a thing at the AHOA conference in Long Beach, and Garamendi was the insurance commissioner then, and the real hot topic of the day was workman's comp and how those fees had just gotten crazy at that point in time. So we're doing a thing on 1031 exchanges, and they're pulling people out of my room. We've got standing room only, and they're pulling people out and getting them in the room next door with Garamendi, so that his feelings aren't hurt. Because he had nobody in there. They're going, wait a minute, what happened? 1031, because all of a sudden you start telling people how they can save money and defer taxes, then you get their attention. So,
right.
And it's, I know with me and most of the industry now, it's just part of your standard operating procedure. Okay, now when we're going to buy a hotel, that's my forte, and I know that you're doing hotels and commercial real estate, multifamily and single family in some cases, and on and on. The thing about a hotel, it's also a cash business, okay, like a C-store and a few others. But when we go to buy a hotel, there's what's called a property improvement plan from the brand. They want you to make certain improvements to the asset, and you've got to comply with that. So I'm pulling in the exchange person because we've sold one asset, we're buying this one, and now I'm also talking to the brand about what their PIP's going to be, and then I'm bringing in like cost segregation because of all the materials coming out of the hotel, and now can I use that and accelerate certain things in my tax returns and get, I used to say, there's gold in those walls. So, especially if we're, rewiring or doing a number of other things, the copper and everything else that's coming out. So how much with a reverse exchange? Because that's quite a bit different from your standard 1031 exchange. Could you give us the nuances between the two types?
Okay. When you're talking about doing a reverse exchange, the timelines are the same as a forward exchange. The reason it's called a reverse exchange is because you're having to close on the replacement property, so your purchase property, before you have closed on your sale property. Okay. Now, just to touch on something, sometimes individuals or taxpayers think that a reverse exchange is me being under contract on my replacement property, but that's not it.
Yeah.
It's the fact that you actually have to close on one, the one you want to buy, before you've closed on the one you want to sell. Now, what makes that a more challenging transaction is because majority of the folks that are doing exchanges need the money from the sale to buy the replacement property.
Yeah.
You don't have that in a reverse. So the question is where are you getting the funds to buy this property? Now, it's easy when they're all cash.
Right.
Okay, because they're providing the cash itself to buy the property. Now, the nuance to the reverse is that the taxpayer that's trying to facilitate the exchange, that either company or that individual, they can't be on title to both properties at the same time. Right. So the qualified intermediary creates what's called an exchange accommodation title holder. I know I'm getting kind of technical here.
That's okay.
All right. It's called an EAT, and we're not talking about lunch. All right. But it basically,
yeah,
there you go. But basically what it means is that we're creating an LLC that we're going to be the member of, and we're going to be on title to that property. So we turn around and we master lease the property back to the taxpayer. There's certain things, there's a lot of documents that go through all that.
Right.
The cost of doing a reverse exchange is probably 7 to 10 times more than it is to do a forward exchange because of all the liability and the formation and the filing of tax returns, the master leasing of the properties and such like that. So when somebody's considering a reverse exchange, it's a conversation that really needs to be had long before you get yourself into a position where you're closing in 2 weeks and somebody told you about a reverse and you find out you can't do it because you don't have the money to buy the property, and you got to go to your lender who's not going to be that accommodating to us being the borrower.
Right.
So it's something that should be planned out.
Well in advance. Yeah.
In my opinion, yes.
6 months, maybe even longer.
Well, it doesn't have to be that long, but maybe at least a month before, or to give you an idea of what's going to happen and what's going forward. When I talk to somebody about a reverse exchange, I want to find out, is it economically feasible for them to do one?
Right.
Because what would you pay in taxes as opposed to what you're going to pay to have this transaction, accommodated, if you will. because there's more fees than just the qualified intermediaries fees.
Yeah.
You've got double transfer tax issues. You have possibility of higher lending fees if you have to go to a private lender. That's going to cost more to borrow their funds. So you want to look to see what am I paying
Right.
to do this as to what I would pay in taxes.
Now, there's also some benefits with the reverse exchange. I can get all my soft costs covered in that, can't I? I can put in my architectural, my brand fees, and
Well,
various other things, right?
that would be more of an improvement exchange, I think, is what you're
Okay.
describing, is where you're going to be making actual improvements
Right.
to the property. And the format's similar.
Yeah.
Okay, it's the same, actually. It's just what's a little different is if you're doing a reverse improvement exchange, so there's the reverse improvement exchange, then there's an improvement exchange. So when you're doing an improvement exchange, then some of your costs, such as what you've described, could potentially be added to the basis in the property.
Okay. Okay. What are it's federal tax law. So this applies throughout the continental United States, Hawaii, Alaska, territories of the U.S. No territories?
Not certain ones do not qualify. I mean,
okay.
yeah, like people think Puerto Rico qualifies.
Yeah.
Puerto Rico does not qualify.
Ah, interesting.
Odd,
That is
but
odd.
it does not. Guam does.
Guam does, but Puerto Rico doesn't.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
They wrote,
Are there any nuance changes from state to state? Or is it, this is the law, it's federal, that's it?
Well, it's a great question because what happens is you have state law and then you have federal law. That, as you said, 1031s is a part of the federal tax code.
Right.
So the question is, does every state mirror or comply with the federal code? Majority of them do, but you want to check state by state to see whether it's a state that, complies with the way that 1031 works at the federal level. For example, Pennsylvania. If you're selling out of Pennsylvania, they don't necessarily comply with the 1031. California does.
Okay.
So when somebody's doing out-of-state transactions, it's always important not to just assume that because it's a federal code that it applies the same in the state that they're coming out of.
Now, with your business, I've got to guess right now, okay, show focuses on hotels in California and the economic engine that they are. You've got to be seeing a lot of exchanges out of California.
Yes.
So I'm guessing single family hotels, office, all of it, because you've got to do the like kind, and you might want to explain what like kind is to our audience.
Okay.
So, but also on top of that, where are the dollars going? Are they going to Arizona? Are they going to Nevada, Washington State, Oregon, Idaho, a few other states?
Okay, so first of all, let's talk about what like kind is in the 1031. A lot of times individuals think that like kind means actually what I sold I have to buy. That means like kind. So if I sold a hotel, for example, then I have to go buy a hotel. Well, there are cases where people are operating hotels, but they may not want to operate a hotel anymore. So now they'll sell the hotel. So what can I buy? Well, you can buy an apartment building. You can buy a bunch of single-family rentals. You can buy office. You can buy single-tenant triple net. You can buy a Delaware statutory trust. Okay, you can buy anything that's real property that's going to be held for trade or business or for investment. So like kind is very, very broad.
Okay.
It's very broad.
And the common denominator is the real estate.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter. If I was a dentist today and I wanted to be a hotelier tomorrow, I could swap out the dentist practice and the real estate and go into a hotel with being able to take the advantage of the tax deferment.
Well, let me fine-tune that a little bit.
A little bit too broad.
A little too broad. Okay, so if I'm selling my dental practice, okay, I'm going to have some furnishings, fixtures, equipment.
Yeah.
I'm going to have exactly.
Yeah.
I am going to have my my client base or my list of people that I provide, service to. So there could be a combination of things. If I'm selling my dental practice, what am I selling? Am I selling the business operation along with the building? If that's the case, then the only thing coming into the exchange is going to be the real property. Because that was one of the things that was changed in the the new Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that took effect the beginning of last year. It's hard to imagine we're saying that last year. We're all getting our taxes done now, so hopefully we'll, knock on wood, fare.
Yes.
But so what ended up happening, if you remember, there was a lot of talk about getting rid of 1031s.
Right.
And we were able to maintain the tax code itself, but for the real property portion of 1031, but the personal property, such as the furnishings, fixtures, equipment, that's no longer available to do a 1031, or arts and collectibles no longer to do a 1031.
Really? Wow. So all the FF&E and the arts and collectibles is gone.
Yes.
What are some of the other changes in the code because of the Jobs Act?
Well, the whole Tax Cuts and Jobs Act itself.
Yeah,
that's another show for another day with a CPA. But from the 1031 perspective, you're just basically dealing with real property exchanges only. That's it. Yeah.
Okay.
There are a lot of different changes and nuances that are in the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that it's really important that somebody that is a hotel person, if they can't exchange the FF&Es any longer, the furnishings, fixtures, and equipment, then, then what they might want to do is find out what remedies they have, because there's certain things that were put in there that could help offset that issue with the personal property side of things. Right. And I know enough to know I don't know enough. You have to be a CPA to start delving in a lot of those waters.
And we're not CPAs. So,
no, we're not going there with that.
Call your accountant. That's all I can tell you.
Always call your accountant when you're considering an exchange of any sort.
Yeah, and your legal team as well. So I know that with the attorneys that I use, they're on board with the exchanges and everything else that we're doing. So and there's some really great attorneys out there that are advantageous to work with for the deal instead of being a deal killer.
Exactly.
So we've both seen a few of those.
Yes.
So what states are you seeing people exchange into?
Okay, to get part B of your question. Yeah. I see a lot of folks still going into Texas. I mean, that's a very big state, so there's a lot of, opportunity there. A lot of companies are moving to that area, so the jobs are following the real estate. So Texas is still, very active. People are going into Florida. Some are going into Nevada, not as much that I see anyway. Arizona a little bit, but definitely they're going outside of California, mainly because you can't get the cash flow for the values that you're having to buy. I mean, that's one of the challenges with an exchange. Is you're selling today at if you're selling in Southern California and let's just use a single family rental for just an ease of conversation. I'm selling this $500,000 property. Well, to buy that same property, you're going to be buying less than what you sold for, because the prices are higher. So folks are definitely taking that money and they're going into different states where they can buy multiple properties. And, some are even going into the Rust Belt, into Ohio and Michigan and Pennsylvania, so some of those areas there.
You get some opportunities there. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, you saw, we've all seen the erosion of Detroit and what's happened there. Mm-hmm. And, you look at Cleveland and a few of the other areas. But just to mention those two, now I think whether it's an enterprise zone or something else that's going to be driving new business there, there's some opportunities there, and I think the tax scenarios in some of the states are a little bit easier as well. So,
I see it more as what I see is because you're talking about the opportunity zones that are coming into the various states that have participated in it. One of the things I want to make clear, you can't exchange into an opportunity zone fund, so you can't do that. Doesn't qualify for an exchange. But if these opportunity zones work as designed, then hopefully some of the areas can start coming back where you have more growth and more prosperity. But one of the things that I think people need to understand is that when you're going into these different states, at least I've seen it, is the appreciation level is not going to be as rapid as it is here in California, and specifically Southern California or in the Bay Area. There's a lot of appreciation that's continued to go. How much this is going to continue, who knows? I mean, we're already past the cycle of as it is now. So
we're well beyond it. But it's an interesting time. I mean, we can certainly throw a lot of gasoline on this fire with the political situation and various other things that are at Wall Street. The up and down there right now, and it's an interesting time.
Yeah.
So I'm imagining that your business in Q1 of this year is pretty much on par for what it was last year.
That would be right. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So that's good. You're not, and we didn't talk about this, but I don't think any of us are seeing a black swan event out there right now on the horizon, but we all know that there's something, is it gotten to the horizon yet? I don't know. I don't see it. But I'm sure that'll be part of the discussion at the California Lodging Investment Conference with the experts on the panels that we've got there. But, I look at Nevada and granted there's no personal income tax, and I think a while ago Nevada and Arizona were probably favorite sons of people trying to, escape California for tax reasons and various other things. But I just think Nevada's kind of played out at this point. If you look at what they're doing as a whole, especially in Las Vegas, they're now charging for parking and everything else.
Oh, are they?
I mean, the resort fees, and it's one of my pet peeves are resort fees or the urban destination charge when they're not a resort. I think as a whole, my industry is shooting itself in the foot with that.
I see.
But you saw all these massive subdivisions and everything else prior to the meltdown. You saw people leaving Los Angeles, in Orange County, Southern California, parts of Northern California, going to Nevada, going to Arizona. They're going, okay, yeah, it's going to be 300 degrees in the summertime, but I've got a pool and I've got air conditioning and I've got no personal income tax. So let me sell whatever my business and my real estate is here. We'll exchange and do something there. But I just think the infrastructure in Nevada isn't cohesive right now. I think they've got some serious issues there. And I think they've got some serious issues with their gouging in that city in particular, where, I can go to San Francisco, and, I know it's going to be expensive. You had almost 2 years of the Moscone Center being closed, and you still had the hotels running at, 85, 90%, 95% occupancy. So, okay, what are you going to do? Okay. Now Moscone Center's back open. Times are going to be even better. Prices are going to get higher. Yeah, probably, but, again, I was born and raised here. I want to stay in California, but we'll see what happens.
Well, except for the last month and a half of weather, it's
yeah.
Generally people stay for the weather.
Yeah, generally they do. I mean, if you look at it, we could have a deluge of rain between Christmas and New Year's Eve. Okay, the day after Christmas to New Year's Eve, and New Year's Day, it's sunny, 70 degrees, and it's clean as a whistle outside. And Herb and Martha have been sitting in 3.5 feet of snow in Minneapolis, and he's going, this is the last year I'm shoveling snow. We're moving to California because they're seeing the Rose Parade and the Rose Bowl, and everybody's in short sleeve shirts. So it's both a blessing and a curse. We had a conference call with one of my panels yesterday, and most of the panel is located, or I shouldn't say most, part of it is located on the East Coast. So, I'm taking the call on my headset on my phone, and I'm out on my patio yesterday, and I'm going, hey, it's great here.
Yeah, even at 50 degrees, you're doing okay.
I think it was a little bit warmer than that. We had a marine layer, so it held the heat in a little bit.
I don't know. I feel like I need to bundle up when we're 50 degrees, but when I talk to my East Coast folks, they go, oh, stop whining.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, my favorite thing's usually be in the car with the top down, calling one of my buddies in New York. It's January. You go, oh, you're in the wind tunnel again. Here you go. So, Anything on the horizon you're seeing right now? Are there any legislative changes besides the Jobs Act that have affected exchanges?
Well,
Is
I
there
think
anything else coming into play this year or next year?
Well, there's certain things that are a part of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Acts that are coming out, and I see the broadcast coming through my email and information that we receive, and there's certain things in there that could impact somebody's need to do a 1031. For example, like 199A. So, I shouldn't have said it because now I got to try to explain it.
Well, we can give people your email address.
Well, talk to your accountant about it because the guidelines are still coming out on it. Okay, but that may have some, that there may have been something in that could impact exchanges. Not seeing where it is going to have a major impact to that. A lot of folks thought that opportunity zones were going to have an impact to exchanges.
Not at all.
Not really.
Yeah.
It's not a competition. It's a different vehicle for somebody else. Exactly.
Wow.
So people that want to have their money locked up for 10 years, they're going to have it there. If somebody's interested in doing real property, they can still do the exchange because that's their vehicle for that. We're always looking to see what Washington may be doing.
Yeah.
And so we have with the Federation of Exchange Accommodators, which is our trade group, if you will. They have visits to D.C. and anything that's coming up on the horizon. Obviously, they're going to be monitoring what's going to impact our industry.
Yeah.
And they spend a lot of time over the last, prior to the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, and even before when you had former President Obama, because this has been around for quite a while.
Yeah.
And so when we out there making our case that 1031s are basically a continuation of ownership, not some scheme, if you will. It's people are continuing to do what they did. They're just doing it in a different state, maybe with a different product.
Absolutely, and and it's funny because I've had clients like you've got that every deal that they're involved with, it is an exchange. Mm-hmm. That's just part of their operating program. Mm-hmm. That's it. No, we have to exchange. Okay, mm-hmm. Here we go. So it's always been part of it. So yeah, it's a great vehicle or tool to enhance your business. Mm-hmm. So we've had a lot of talk lately, and we're going to go to commercial now. But when we get back, I want to try and bring up if there's any impact coming on the modification or bifurcation of Prop 13. So
okay.
Let's go to a commercial now, and we'll be back.
From Eureka to San Diego, from Malibu to Bakersfield, the California Lodging Investment Conference, CLIC, is a one-of-a-kind conference focusing exclusively on our Golden States hotel market. CLIC was launched in 2016 to harness the knowledge of our industry leaders, support our community, and educate emerging talent. CLIC brings together lodging professionals from California and beyond for one day of learning, professional development, and networking. If you're in the California hotel market or plan to be, you should attend CLIC 3 on March 7th, 2019 at the Westin South Coast Plaza Hotel. We invite you to check out the California Lodging Investment Conference website at cliconference.com for the latest details. Early registration now open, and as a listener of the Checkout California radio show, please make sure to use our exclusive discount code of CLIC, C-L-I-C, when registering for this one-of-a-kind California hospitality event that's sold out the last 2 years.
Hi, this is Ryan Huntsman with Chicago Title Company, located in beautiful Newport Beach, California. We're a national hub for our company, so we service the entire nation very efficiently with one of the largest national footprints in the industry. As part of the Fidelity family of companies, we get to enjoy and boast about being ranked number 302 on the Fortune 500 list. We're very proud of our tenured staff as they handle some of the most complex and high liability transactions across the country in a very professional and pragmatic fashion. Finally, many people are unaware of all the ancillary services that our Fidelity family of companies has to offer, including 1031 exchanges, UCC services, home warranty services, and much more. So if you haven't created a strategic partnership with a solid title company representative, I urge you to reach out to myself or someone else at Chicago Title to get the most of what we have to offer. Thank you.
And we're back. I'm Craig Sullivan. This is Checkout California. This is Dino Champagne joining me in the studio today from Asset Preservation Incorporated. My co-host couldn't make it. He has got some things going on that is keeping him out of the studio today. We do wish him well. Radney will be back with us for our show on the 6th, and that is going to be the last show of our 2nd season. So hard to believe that we've been doing this for 2 seasons now. And that show on the 6th, we're going to have some surprise guests, and that's also going to tie very heavily into the 3rd annual California Lodging Investment Conference, which is on the 7th. And if you haven't registered, please go to cliconference.com. Use my promo code CLIC, C-L-I-C, and get registered. We've got a few seats left, but we're hoping for a sellout again for 3 years in a row. When we left for commercial, we were going to press Dino on the Jarvis Act and the modifications coming to that Prop 13. But that still hasn't gone through, so we're going to jettison that. Dino, give us the procedures that people need to go through to get an exchange started, the midway point, and how do they finish that? How do they work with you and your firm from A to Z on an exchange?
Okay. So when somebody is considering doing a 1031 exchange, obviously it's property that's either investment property or property that they're holding and operating their business out of. Right. It's not their primary residence. So if it's a primary residence and that's all it is, it's not a 1031, no matter, that's a completely different tax code. So when an investor or an owner is thinking about selling their building, the one thing that I always recommend that they do is talk to whoever does their taxes, whoever their CPA, their tax advisor, their legal counsel, to determine whether they need to do a 1031 or not, because that's the platform in which all decisions on 1031 should ever be made. Because remember, a 1031 is about deferring tax on gain.
On the gain, yeah.
So if there is no gain, or if they have maybe some net operating losses or something that can be used against the gain where they don't need to do an exchange, then you don't do an exchange.
Yeah.
Okay? So once you've made that determination that there's gain, I don't want to give, Uncle Sam and Uncle Gavin for California all this money, which can be anywhere between 35 to 40% of your profits. Then, you sit there and go, okay, well, I'm going to do an exchange. Let me explore that. So the next thing would be to talk to somebody like me that is a qualified intermediary. So what I'm going to talk to them about, and this has to happen, by the way, before the sale closes. I cannot tell you how many times I have had phone calls. Probably about 2 weeks ago, I was giving a seminar, a gentleman calls and he says, my escrow officer in Texas said to give you a call. I need to do an exchange. We closed last week. I said, well, regrettably...
The horse is out of the barn at that point.
Exactly. Yeah. There is no exchange because when you're doing an exchange, the qualified intermediary has to become the seller of the property. Right. And we do this through the exchange agreement documents themselves. Okay, that's how we do this. So it has to get set up prior to the closing. So what happens is the process would go that I'm talking to the client. I'm going to explain to them what the 1031 does. I'm going to explain the time frames. I'm going to explain to them the identification rules and other restrictions that come into play in the discussion. Okay.
Let's start off with the identification and your timing.
Okay. So first of all, the timing for the exchange officially begins once the closing takes place. Okay. In California, that's when the deed is recorded. In other states, it's at the closing table. It depends on which state you're in. Right. Okay. So when that closing takes place, that's when the official time frame for the exchange begins. You have 180 calendar days to complete your exchange. However, the first 45 days of that 180-day period is the identification period. Now, I will tell you there are no resets, redos, restarts, mulligans.
Done,
Can I, cross my fingers and hope again that I can get an extension? Because
I mailed myself this envelope with 3 different properties in it. I haven't opened it.
Well, you can't identify to yourself. So that's a problem right there, okay? try to explain that one at the audit.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, because it's all about audit. You have to be able to demonstrate that you complied with the rules.
Yeah.
So the first 45 days in any exchange period, I like to say, is going to be the one that's going to give you the most heartache, headache, and stomach ache. Okay, because you can't restart. And in the inventory market that we're dealing with today, there's not a lot of inventory out there, or at least decent inventory that you'd want to put your money into.
Sure.
So it can be very stressful the first 45 days when somebody's considering doing an exchange. I had a call today. We're going to be setting up the exchange once they get into escrow, which should be happening in the next few days or so. But they're going to be on vacation the first 30 days of the 45. So that gets a little, that's going to be, that's going to be a little interesting.
Yeah.
I've had this happen several times. So but the person doing the exchange needs to understand that you elect to do this. It's an election of a tax code, and you have 45 days. So you're going to have to identify what you're going to buy. So let me explain what identifying means, because a lot of folks have that kind of cross-wired as to what actually it means. From the technical aspects of identifying, what it basically means is that you're filling out a piece of paper that we as an accommodator are going to give you. You put the address, the city, and the state on there. You will sign it, you will date it, and you will send it to either the qualified intermediary or somebody who's a party to the transaction but not an agent for. Now, I know I'm sounding a little technical at that point, but that's the reality. Okay, majority of the times the identification comes to the qualified intermediary.
Right.
Now, it is not a requirement that you be under contract on any of those properties. However, you can only buy what is on that list.
Right.
Okay?
And something else that wasn't on there.
I have that situation. That's a phone call for later on this afternoon.
Yeah.
I've got that very situation going on right now. They identified 3 properties, want to buy another property that's not on the list. We can't fund that.
Wow.
Okay? Because that's not on the list. It's not on the list. And so... so that's the hard part to the exchange. But you don't have to be under contract. Is it smart to be under contract? Yes, because you can only buy what's on the list. So you want to make sure that when you're going to be doing an exchange, when you think about putting that property on the market for sale, you should start looking at where you might want to buy, where you're going to look to do, what you want to, what's out there, and start making your decision as to checking out these various markets. Okay, once you get under contract, we physically get involved, then you still should be looking. Is it okay to be under contract on a property before you've closed your sale? Yes. Yeah. You just have to be careful that your closing of your purchase will come after the closing of the sale.
Yeah.
I've seen
be before.
No, now we'd be talking about a reverse exchange, okay, which 8 out of 10 people cannot do. So I have situations in the last probably month or so, I've probably had several deals where the sale and the purchase are closing within 24 to 48 hours of each other. Now that relieves a lot of stress because they're getting it done.
Yeah.
Okay, but then if people wait to the last minute to set up an exchange, then I'm not sure how they've been able to find anything suitable. So sometimes people, that's why they're going to go out of state where there's more inventory where they can pull in on. So that's one of the challenges. Now, people will ask me, well, I've identified these properties, I'm under contract with these properties, but of no fault of my own, I can't buy this property. Can't I replace that?
No.
And the answer is no if you're past the 45 days. Okay, if you're still within the 45 days, you can revoke and replace your list. Now, in theory, most people are not going to fill out their identification form itself until they get closer to the 45th day. Now, whether that 45th day falls on a Saturday or a Sunday or a holiday, it still has to come in.
Calendar days.
I always recommend that people send their identification letter during business hours so somebody can take a look at it and they can actually, say, we have a problem, or you may need to fix this because what rule are you using? Because there's 3 different rules you can use. I had a gentleman many years ago that did an exchange, and he kept faxing in IDs over the weekend. His 45th day was on a Sunday, and he's faxing it into the processing team. Well, when they got there on Monday, they had 9 properties. So now he's not in the 3 property rule, and he wasn't in the 200% rule. So that created a problem. So you want to make sure that when you're filling out these ID forms that what you're doing is going to match.
Yeah.
I've had large clients that have forgotten to put the city and the state. They'll put the address, but they won't put the city and the state. So we need
555 Main Street.
well, I always laugh. I go, okay, because they'll go 123 Main Street, Norco.
Right.
Well, Norco where? Norco, California, Norco, Louisiana.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a Norco, Louisiana.
There's
Okay.
a Sulphur, Louisiana. And
Yes, there is. Yes. I wonder why it's called sulfur. The Norco is called because of a refinery.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
So, but anyhow. So these are some of the situations that truly come up. So the hard part to the exchange is truly the identification period. Yeah. So to give you the rules very quickly, the 3 property rule means you're limited you're limited to 3 addresses. The dollar amount does not matter.
Okay.
If you identify 4 or more addresses, now you're going to default to the 200% rule first, which means when you add up the fair market values of the properties that you're identifying, so at this point the values will matter.
Yeah.
The amount cannot exceed 200% of your sale price. So if I sold for $1 million, I can identify, maybe 20 properties, 30 properties. But when I add them up, it cannot be more than $2 million.
Right.
Then I can buy whatever combination meets my exchange requirement, which would be minimum, say, $1 million less the closing cost.
Yeah.
But if I was like the gentleman that sent in 3 different IDs with 9 different, totaling 9 different properties, he was in the 95% rule, which means he exceeded the 3 properties, but he exceeded the 200%.
Right.
So under the 95% rule means you have to acquire 95% of the total value of all the properties you've identified. I like to refer to it as the all or nothing list.
Yeah.
Okay, because you have to buy all of them.
All of them, yeah.
Okay.
And and I think that's really the smart way to go because if I bought a hotel a few years ago, say for $8 million, and now I'm selling it for 25, okay, which is very realistic in the Golden State. I've got to really strategically plan that sale and the acquisition so that I can defer that gain. And I'm going to be looking at all those rules, and I'm going to be talking to you and seeing how you're going, how is my strategy going to fit with the 1031 exchange process. So now I've got your team involved. They're interfacing with my escrow company.
Correct.
They're interfacing with my title company, which usually is going to be one and the same. There are some very, very good independent escrow officers out there and independent escrow companies, but as you get various lenders requiring that title and escrow are all under the same roof,
Yes.
It's changed the dynamics of the industry. So you're interfacing with everybody. My insurance carriers.
Not really.
So that's just going to be with the escrow.
No,
side.
we're going to be, our interaction is going to be with whoever's handling the closing.
Okay.
So not even the title companies. The title companies are going to be working with and a lot of times when you're talking about high liability transactions, okay, in the $20 million, $30 million, $100 million, you're going to generally see that the title and the escrow are both by the same, company. So in that situation, we're rarely dealing with the title side of it. Okay. However, title is very important in an exchange because the same taxpayer selling has to be the same taxpayer purchasing. Right. And sometimes situations where the title may be in one name, but that's not actually the taxpayer that actually owns the property. Right. Now, we're getting a little deep into the weeds here, but our interaction is going to be mainly with the escrow officer, okay, because we're going to be coordinating with them. So I would be requesting information from them, such as the fully executed purchase and sale agreement. And notice I focused on the word fully.
Fully, yes.
Okay, so the reason
not
I
a draft.
I've gotten executed documents where maybe one of the sellers has signed, but the other seller didn't, but the buyers have signed. So it's not really a fully executed. That's not fully. No. So we have to have a fully executed purchase and sale agreement. We're going to ask for a copy of the title. If it's in a different state, we're going to say we want the prelim here, title commitment elsewhere. Right. And then if there's escrow instructions, we want a copy of that. And then that's when my team jumps in and they prepare the exchange documents themselves. And so those exchange documents are going to be sent directly to the closing agent, so the escrow officer, and they're going to be sent to the client. Very important that they actually sign the documents that were sent. Now, you're laughing. Why did I say that? Because
I feel there's a really good story coming, and that's what I want to hear.
Okay, I had a deal several years ago, and we had the situation where there were several sellers, okay, and there was tenants in common, so they could go their separate ways, okay. Yeah. So I had one of the exchanges for one of the sellers, and when we got the documents, and it was scheduled to close, say, the next Friday. Okay, we'll pick a date, the next Friday. Well, we follow up. Did you sign the exchange documents? And he goes, well, no, I want to see you. I want to come in, but I don't have time to come to sign them at your office. Now, they don't have to sign them at my office, by the way. Very rarely does that have to happen. But he wanted to see me to sign at the office. I said, okay. He says, but I'm going on vacation. Okay, so why don't you call the escrow company and tell them to extend the closing?
Yeah.
I said, well, I would like to think I have that much power, but I do not. Yeah. So he says, but I'm going to sign them when I come back. We're going on a 2-week vacation. I said, okay, you understand that if this escrow closes on time, you do not have an exchange. Fortunately, the escrow did not close on time. When he got back, he came in and he signed the documents, and we had it set. Wow. But you do have to sign the documents, and this has not happened once. Because the individuals don't always understand what these documents are. In all fairness to them, I say, look, you're getting tons of documents. You're getting documents from your real estate agent. You're getting documents from your attorney, maybe. You're getting documents from escrow. Now you're getting a whole nother set of documents for the exchange. Yeah. Okay? So, and I like to say, when we're sending you something, please do not ignore it. I'm not giving you recipes for my pork roast sandwiches for the game. So just make sure you're paying attention. It's really important, and that's why I say it's really difficult. But keep your eye on the prize. Yeah. It's going to get stressful. We like to tell folks, always call us with questions. Right. Because this is not what you do every day. This is what we do every day. And we're more than happy to help you and answer your questions. Yeah. And believe me, I've heard the same question 15 or 20 times.
Well, yeah, and you're probably going to hear it another 400 to 500 times. And,
I'm talking about with the same client. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I've had clients like that in the past. So, but, there's a world of difference dealing with an LLC, no matter how good they are at their business and what their team consists of, or the size and their expertise compared to an institutional grade. Okay, yes. The institutional grade understands that I've got to do all this. The 2 or 3 partner LLC, and everybody's really, this is kind of a side thing, and they don't get it all the time. If you get partners involved that are new to the hotel sector, they're coming in, they're relying on me and a partner to operate it, asset manage it, and their passive equity. They don't understand all the nuances.
Well, in that scenario, when you have multiple partners that are involved in a hotel, and they want to go their separate ways when they go to sell that hotel, because now my favorite partners, Manny, Mo, and Jack, you have certain steps you need to take well in advance of dissolving, selling that property, so you can go your separate ways. Regrettably, the planning is not that far in advance, and I'll get a call where individuals want to, they want to go their separate ways, but they're actually members of a partnership, and that does not qualify for 1031s. So, and now you've got a really difficult time.
And you've got a lot of angry investors.
Well, because now what are they going to do? Right. So then now they have to create a strategy. So you have to have a really good tax advisor to come in, and we run across this all the time where, we've had some that have in a partnership, and they go out and they buy in the partnership, and then maybe 3-4 years later, they'll do something to drop out of the partnership so as long as they maintain that intent to hold for investment purposes. So it gets very, very technical. Very technical.
Very quickly as well. Now, inventory. There's not a lot of it out there right now.
No.
Okay, so what I'm seeing, and please elaborate on your side, because of inventory, because of financing, Okay, interest rates are starting to creep up a little bit. Luckily on the hotel sector, demand is still outpacing supply, but we've got a ton of new hotels in the development pipeline.
Okay.
And unlike the last cycle, this is more on the select service side. Your Hampton Inns, your Courtyards, Fairfields, that type of property, Hilton Garden Inns, Hyatt Place. Most of the Choice family as well. Wyndham's got a lot of them in there as well. But the last one was resorts, and as I still refer to it this day today, Terraneo's the last resort. Okay, they got one draw on their construction loan before their lender went belly up. Okay, huge problem. Urban Land Institute did a white paper on the development. And what they went through.
Yeah, that was many years ago, like early 2004, something like that.
Yeah, and they were supposed to open 2008, and they were under construction and going for a draw. No, it didn't happen. I mean, that hotel was 20 years in the making, if not longer. SeaWorld came in the middle of the night and took the animals in the old marine land down to San Diego, and I still say that's where the Irsay family got the idea to move the Baltimore Colts to Indianapolis.
It was moving Shamu.
Yeah,
Shamu,
exactly.
I think, was San Diego. Hey, I taught my daughter how to drive in that parking lot at SeaWorld.
Yeah.
I mean, down in right down PV.
Yeah.
So Palos Verdes.
I went there quite a bit in my youth. So, but I'm looking at these factors and I'm going, okay, I'm not seeing a lot of transactions. So, how is today's market impacting your business?
Well, right now it's been steady.
Yeah.
What we project in the future, who knows? I mean, because the biggest, I think what I see and I hear through talking to the brokerage communities and such, and the escrow community as well, is that people can't find what they want to exchange into. And if they can't find what they want to exchange into, they're not going to sell what they have. So could the market be impacted by it? Sure. Rising interest rates going to have some level of impact. I think it may seem to be a negative initially. Maybe rising interest rates will get prices to where properties cash flow more reasonably. Because, you've got properties that, I was talking to a guy as I'm driving down here today, dealing with, he bought a property in, I think it was in Ohio at a 7 cap, now here would probably be a 4.
4, yeah.
Right. And that was, that was a single tenant, triple net retail property. If it was an apartment building, maybe it's 3 or 2.
2, yeah. And
so, some of the challenges. So, your guess is as good as mine. If I had a crystal ball, I wouldn't be sitting here. I'd be on some beach somewhere.
You would be both.
Knowing those winning lotto numbers or something, There
we go. Well, we're down to our last 5 minutes. I want to thank Dino for joining us today. CBRE Hotels, Rod Apodaca has been a sponsor, and we've got our checkout with Rod, and unfortunately Rod is traveling today, so he wasn't part of the show. My co-host, Rod Gantos, wasn't part of the show, but we'll have you back on when we've got Rod Gantos back in the studio with us. I'm really excited that you're joining us this year at the California Lodging Investment Conference. Thank you for registering and being part of that. I think you're going to get a lot of opportunities to pick up some new clients there, for one thing, but also get some great insight on the hotel segment here in California. We've got 6 brands, including Marriott and Wyndham, IHG, Choice, Best Western, Red Roof, all involved. We've got 6 lenders that are all doing hotel loans, including construction loans, participating. We've got Glenn Hausman from No Vacancies moderating our opening panel, which is hotel investment and development. So it'll be interesting to see what he has to say and his panel. Bruce Ford from Lodging Econometrics. This guy is got all of the data on everything that's in the development pipeline across the country. I mean, it's an incredible company. And Bruce Ford's a great friend and a great source of statistics for this show. So it's going to be an exciting day.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you're coming down to be part of it. Now, you're doing at least one panel at the Commercial Real Estate Lending Conference in April here in Long Beach. I'm moderating a panel there. And you want to give us a little bit of what your panel's going to be focusing on for Arnie's conference?
Well, with the caveat that I'm not the boss. Okay.
No, only Arnie is.
Arnie's the boss. There's the risk management panel, which is going to attorney, environmental.
Jenny Redland.
Yeah, Jenny, an appraiser, such pretty our standard group there. And then Arnie's also talking about having an additional panel on 1031s and 1031 options. So, what can people trade into if they didn't want to deal with the management side of things, such as a Delaware statutory trust. So that right now, we have a conference call coming up next month to go over everything. But I'm looking forward to that. Arnie always has a nice event. So
quickly, we got just a couple of minutes. What was the Delaware?
Oh, a Delaware statutory trust is a replacement property vehicle for individuals that are accredited investors, and they don't want to be dealing with the management of a property, but they don't want to pay the gain on the sale of their property. So they would go into something like a Delaware statutory trust. Generally, the holding period for those type of products are 5, 7 to 10 years. And they have, so if you don't want management, that's a product to take a look at. If you're a control person, that is not a product for you.
No. I was going to say, for me, no, that's not what I want to do.
No.
So, Dino, thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Could you tell our audience how they can reach you and follow up with you with their questions for an exchange?
Sure. My office number is 866-857. Hold on. 1031.
There you go.
Again,
love it.
866-857-1031. My email address is my first name, and yes, he has been saying my name correctly this entire show. It is Dino, D-I-N-O, at apiexchange.com. So feel free to reach out to me with any questions you might have in regards to the 1031 process. Happy to answer it for you.
There you go. And if you want to take a look at Dino's website, it is apiexchange.com. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
We will see you at the California Lodging Investment Conference on the 7th, and we've got a very special show on the 6th, of Check Out California. Thank you, and aloha.
Thank you for being our guest today on Check Out California. We look forward to having you as a guest with us again in 2 weeks. Until then, you can always reach us through our Check Out California Facebook page or by emailing us at checkoutcalifornia@gmail.com. We love hearing from you. So do let us know what you think of the show and what areas of interest you'd like to see us cover in the future. Your feedback is very important to us as we continue to bring you the best hospitality our Golden State has to offer. Until next time, may all your days be filled with sunsets and palm trees. Now, go experience and check out California.